Hope is here. The way to break free with your host, Angela Pedigo, will light a flame within you. Host Angela Pedigo is an author, speaker, and certified life recovery, grief, and joy restoration coach. Angela uses her own life experiences to help you navigate and guide you to success. She also has developed tools that incorporate her faith and her drive to overcome any obstacle in life. So please welcome the host of The Way to Break Free, Angela Pedigo.
Welcome, everybody, to The Way to Break Free. I am your host, Angie Pedigo. I am so excited about my guest and special friend, Miss Tina Case. Tina and I have known each other now for going on five years, 6 years. Yeah, about 6 years now. And she is an absolute delight. You can't meet Tina and not fall in love with her. That's everybody knows her, loves her. So, Tina, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you on here. You know, this week, this month actually, is National Recovery Month, and we've had a lot of guests on the show this week or this month already, and going into the rest of this month with our lineup, we're planning to have a lot of people that are sharing their stories out of recovery. But you know, the one thing that we never want to forget about is, where was Jesus in all of that? And I know that Miss Tina loves Jesus. And so we're going to start there today. Tina, tell us about when you met Jesus.
Well, I can't tell you about meeting Jesus till I figured out that I needed Jesus.
Ooh, that's
so
good.
Let me back up to that. So, which I was raised in church.
Yes.
I had grandparents, aunts, uncles. You know, I had been took to church my whole life. Then when I was about 10-year old, it was my mom's birthday, which is today her birthday. So
Happy birthday.
let's see, it was in 1977, September the 4th, in Carthage, Tennessee, crossing an old bridge, and it was storming, and I'm 10-year-old, didn't know what flash flooding was. And then the announcer on the radio was talking about flash flooding. And when we started across I don't know if anybody remembers that old green rickety bridge, which you could look off the side and see the water. And I saw that raging water, and instantly, it was just that quick. When I saw that water and I heard the word flash flood, and I thought, if I die, I'm going to go to hell, and I was so scared to death. Got to church, couldn't wait till the preacher shut up so I could hit the altar, you're 10. And
yeah.
So, I actually thought I got saved that night, and a man gave me a Bible, took it out of the wrapper and gave me a Bible. And my mom wrote the date on it, and that's the only reason I remember the date. But she wrote who gave it to me, and I've still got that Bible. I still carry that Bible, even though it's falling apart. But a few days later, and anybody that knows me and my brother know we always fought growing up. I mean, Mama wanted to kill us half the time because we fought so much. But we were in the yard fighting one day, and she come out there, and she's like mad, and she said, "Well, you didn't get saved." And I said, "Yes, I did." And she said, "No, you didn't, because if you did, you wouldn't be acting that way." And I thought, well, I knew I didn't feel nothing different, but I was 10.
Yeah.
So fast forward until June 16, 1983. I went to the altar probably pretty much every time I'd go to church. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And so that night, this old man who always come to me every time I was in church with him, he'd always come to get me. Are you lost, sister? You know how they used to do you. And I couldn't stand that man. But that night, the preacher was preaching about the story in the Bible of David and Bathsheba, and about the baby dying. And I'm paraphrasing, but where David said pretty much that I can't bring him back, but I can go to him. Mm-hmm. And it just struck me that the people that we love have died, but we can't bring them back, but we can go to them. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to go. So I went to the altar that night. And then again, like most every time, I kind of, I guess, played, as you say. It was a month before my 16th birthday. And it wasn't that I was playing, it was just I didn't know what I was doing wrong. So I got discouraged and I started to push up off the bench and off the motor's bench. And when I started to push up, I had where I'd sit on my legs for so long, I'd went numb from my waist down.
Mm.
And when I started to push up, and I thought, I can't even get up. I mean, there was no way I could have walked. And so when I started to get up, I said, well, God, you're going to have, and I said, well, Lord, you're going to have to save me now because I can't even get up. And at that very moment, and I had made it hard all those years, but at that very moment, it was like God just waited for that little bit of faith and that little bit of trust of knowing He was going to save me. At that very moment, it was like I felt this warmth start, and I've got chill bumps thinking about it, but I felt this warmth start at the top of my head, and it traveled all the way through me. It was like slow motion all the way through my body. And when it hit my feet, honey, I flew out of that floor. I don't even remember getting up. The preacher, Brother Whitray, was standing behind me, and I hit him. I guess I didn't know this until later, but I reckon I just waylaid him right in the nose and took off when I threw my arms up, and I shouted all over that little Willard schoolhouse down there, and shouted all night, all the way to the next day. And then I ended up joining church the next day and getting baptized. And so, but I always say that I made it hard all them times because I'd say, God, please just save me. God, just save me. Well, He wasn't going to save me because my heart wasn't there. But when I finally got it, and too, I left this out there. My grandmother used to have a picture. It was, the old felt pictures, with the they were paintings, but they were felt.
Yes.
Well, it was a picture of Jesus that sat up on a rock up on the mountain, and you could see the lights of the city down below. And he's sitting up there with his hand outstretched with like a light shining down. And I always loved that picture. I don't know whatever happened to it, but I'd love to have it. And but when that all happened to me, and all of a sudden I see the face of Jesus, it's like I was sitting at His feet. And He had His hand out towards me. So it wasn't the city sitting at His feet, it was me. And when I looked up, and that's when all that happened. So it was, I still get chill bumps every time I tell it. And I've told that word for word most of the time, so many times, but it never changes. And so when people say, have you ever doubted your salvation? And through my addiction and everything, I've had people to say that they've doubted it. The one thing that I had never doubted in my life, I've doubted a lot of stuff, but the one thing I never doubted was the moment that happened, because I can tell it. And I believe if I had dementia and was on my deathbed, I could still tell you everything about that, every detail.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
It's an experience like none other.
Mm-mm.
And a lot of people don't.
Mm-mm.
What do you think? I want to hit on something for just a minute that you mentioned. What do you think, or do you know now, looking back, what was making it so hard for you? Can you
Pride.
see pride?
My pride, stubbornness, too worried about what was going on behind me. And it wasn't that I didn't know what to do. I mean, like I said, I was raised in church my entire life, basically, in two different denominations. My dad's side was, one denomination. My mom's side was another. And I knew they both believed in the heartfelt salvation. They both taught that. I knew what to do. But I think my pride, I was too worried about my friends. Some of them would be outside, or I was worried about somebody giggling, or I think it was just pride.
Yeah.
Pride.
Yeah.
And that will, even the Bible tells us, pride becomes before a fall, if I said that right. And I do feel like that. But that night, I didn't care. I didn't care who saw it. I didn't care if the president was there. I think I left this world for a brief moment. I don't even remember jumping out of the floor.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And every time I tell it, I still get those same God bumps.
It makes me think about when people think, for somebody who may be out there questioning or doubting, did I really have that moment? You know, if you go back to, you ask God to show you, He'll show you.
Absolutely.
He will let you know. He will affirm it. But,
Absolutely. He will.
yeah, it's like that letter that He tells John to write to the churches in Revelations. Go back to your first love.
Mhm.
And you know, if you ever doubted it, and you could go back to
Mhm.
that moment. And I think that's why we still get the goosebumps
Mhm.
and everything else, because it's going back to our first love.
Absolutely.
When we fell in love with Jesus in that moment, you know, believed, surrendered, everything. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's really
Absolutely.
cool. So let's go from there. What was
Go
life
for it.
like right after
Oh Lord, I was on top of the world.
that?
Not a care. Up until that point, I'll tell you this, and I'm saying this because I know there's some out there that probably experience this now,
Mhm.
and they're doubting or they're confused or whatever. From the age of 10 to I got saved when a month before my 16th birthday. I was scared of everything. I was scared of the dark. Look, I would turn my light off in the bedroom and run and jump in my bed just so that my feet wouldn't get close to I mean, I was terrified of everything. I was scared of the dark, scared of people, scared to get in a car with somebody. I mean, I just everything. I had anxiety. I hated the world. I hated my brother. And anybody that knows me and Tim knows that I adore my brother.
Oh, y'all
I
are so
love him,
close. It's
yes.
precious.
But I hated him. I hated my mom and dad. I hated my little. I mean, I hated everybody. And I say hate is a strong word, and it is a strong word. I didn't really hate them. If something would have happened, of course, I'd have been devastated. But I just didn't care.
Yes.
And then after that, it was like the next morning when I woke up, I was at my aunt and uncle's house. And the next morning when I woke up and opened the door, I don't even know if I went to sleep that night, to be honest. But when I walked outside, the world looked totally different. The sun was brighter. I loved my brother, who was the one I always tried to kill. You know, I was constantly trying to kill him. And I even loved my mom and dad. You know, I loved everybody. Didn't agree with them, but I loved them. And it changed everything. I loved people after that. I wasn't scared. I didn't have anxiety. I quit running and jumping in my bed. I quit worrying about, I wasn't scared of the dark. I wasn't even scared of who was in the dark. And I've heard people say, well, I'm not scared of the dark. I'm just scared of what's in the dark. Well, see, I wasn't even scared of that.
That spirit
It's
of
like
fear left.
that spirit of fear left. The spirit of anxiety, the spirit of, I felt like I was just revived, like I was a new person. And then I continued on that path for a long time until I graduated high school. And then you're running with your friends. And then I quit going to church. I graduated. I quit going to church, which was the worst mistake I ever made. If I'd have just continued on that path and stayed prayed up and went to church like I was supposed to, maybe things wouldn't have happened in my life the way that they did. Because then that started leading slowly but surely down a path and now here I am.
It's
many years
gradual,
later.
isn't it?
It
It
is.
just starts out.
It
You
is.
think it's not going to hurt anything, to stop doing the things that keep you in a good relationship.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not just about, I think some people, especially as teenagers, they get tired of, you know, they get that little rebellious side. They
Mhm.
want to go do, you know, whatever they want to do when they want to do it. But there's a protection in staying close to Jesus.
Absolutely.
There's a
is.
protection. And when
Absolutely.
we step out of that, we don't have that protection. Like we're
Mm-mm.
choosing other things, and it welcomes other things, and then it's just
Oh yeah,
it goes downhill from
absolutely
there.
it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, I had this attitude of like, well, I'm grown now, and you can't tell me what to do. And I know my mom and dad, you know, they try to guide you right. And I had a good mom and daddy. I mean, they worked hard,
Yeah.
but I got that attitude. You know, I'm a teenager. I think I know everything.
We can all relate. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
All right, Tina, we have made it to, we're out of high school.
Okay. right.
Gotten away from going to church, kind of staying close to God in that respect. What happened then?
Well, I started smoking pot. I started running with some people and started smoking pot. Now, let me back up a little bit. Before I got saved, I would go to parties, and mom and dad didn't know it, so I'm probably telling on myself, but I'm not going to get grounded now. So
They'll forgive
so
you now.
yes, you can forgive me now. But I'd go to a party on the weekend or something and drink and that kind of thing. But after I got saved, I kind of moved away from that for about a year or two, and got away from it, like I said, going to church. But then graduation came. I started. Actually, how that happened was my boss that I worked for at the time was going to take me. Back then, it was called the Turtle, and my mom was not having it. And my birthday, she was going to actually take me for my birthday. So the day before my actual 18th birthday, and mom wasn't having it. I said, fine, I'll just leave. And so there I went, and after that, it just kind of escalated from there. But I started running with the wrong people. I started drinking, smoking pot, which that's all I did at that point. But I ended up getting pregnant with Corey. I had moved out of the house, and I ended up getting pregnant with Corey, and my son. And when I got pregnant with him, I was still smoking pot, but I didn't know that I was pregnant. So after I found out, then I quit smoking pot. I didn't do anything, didn't drink, smoke pot or nothing until after he was born. And then even after he was born, I really slowed that down because I had a child. And my mom, she was like, I'm not raising this. I'm not raising him. You did this, you're going to raise him. So she would babysit once in a while if I had to work or that kind of thing. But she didn't raise him. She was like, no, you did this, you're going to learn.
How did that affect you?
Well, it made me grow up faster, which I won't, well, let me put it this way. I was 20, but I wasn't grown.
Yes.
You think you are, but it wasn't. I was 20. He was born in February, and I think I turned 21, or no, I turned 22 in July after that. So I was still a kid. but it made me grow up and have more responsibilities. So I always worked. That
She
was
probably
one
did you a
thing.
favor
She
by that.
did. She
Yeah.
did. And I sometimes I think I would be angry with her about it. Well, why can't you just watch him? But really and truly, it kept me grounded some because she wasn't co-signing my bull crap, basically is what, and that's what a lot of us do. You know, hey mom, will you keep so and so? And then we're, oh sure, bring them over. It's the babies. But all we're doing is enabling them to go and do bad.
Yes.
And I know mama saw that. So, and I'm grateful now. I may have not realized it back then, but now I
Right.
do. You know,
Right.
so I appreciated that. But I still didn't. I still wasn't in church. Um, I didn't. I wasn't really living bad, but I wasn't following God either. And so for the first years of Corey's life, I didn't go to church. I worked all the time. A single mom, worked all the time. And to me, Sundays was my rest day. You know, so I could have went to church. Looking back now, I wish I had have, and but I didn't. But Tim, my brother, he moved home um, in 2000 or 99, 2000, somewhere in there. And but when he would come home, Corey would go to church with him. And then him and Kelly, his wife, they got together. And so Tim and Kelly would take Corey to church. So for the years that he went, his early years of going to church, he went with my brother and sister-in-law. And then, but in 97, I ended up hurting my back. And I up until that point, I was like a workaholic. Corey held a lot of grudges against me, had a lot against me because I worked all the time and I missed a lot of stuff in his life. But like I said, I was a single mom. I had bills to pay. I had a son to raise, you know. And so uh, in 97, I bought a house. And the day that I bought it, I was moving and everybody was busy. It was last minute. I had called several people to come and help. Everybody was busy in different directions. So I decided, well, I'll just do it myself. Well, here's me and my 8-year-old son trying to move everything by ourselves. And we was moving a washer and dryer and I hurt my back. And I felt it, but I didn't. I had so much adrenaline going that I didn't realize that I was really, really hurt till that night. So the next morning I couldn't walk. I couldn't move, couldn't even get off my couch. My cousin, bless her heart, she's gone now, but her and her husband cleaned out their horse trailer and come and moved the rest of my stuff and just set it in a room, you know, because I couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to a chiropractor. And so for about the first 4 or 5 years, I went to a chiropractor. I lived in a chiropractor with this pain.
Ooh.
And he would adjust me and put me back together. It was my bottom 2 vertebra or disc. And he'd adjust me and get me put back together, but I had to keep working. So working, you know, every few weeks I'd throw my back out again, I'd be down again, and then I'd have to go back. It was just a repetitive cycle. So I decided, somebody talked to me about surgery. And I was like, well, no, I ain't even been to a doctor. So I go to my family doctor at the time, and they did x-rays, and obviously they saw the problem. So he wrote me pain medication. Well, back in those early years, the late 90s and early 2000s, there wasn't a big opioid crisis or wasn't a big hype about it. You didn't hear about it very much. So it wasn't like I was warned about it. I never grew up in addiction. My mom and dad were not addicts. They didn't even drink. I mean, we didn't know. We just didn't know. So I started taking this pain medication. And when I first started taking it, I was okay. You know, I could control it. I think my first script might have lasted me 2 or 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
But over time, probably within a year, my physical body was so dependent on it that I didn't know how to stop. And so I remember the day that I went back to the doctor to get a refill. And I had been out of it for, like I said, it wasn't a monthly thing at that time. So I had been out of it for a little bit. And then I was crying, not knowing that I was withdrawing from these pills. So I'm crying. Felt like I'm having a nervous breakdown. And so the whole time I'm crying and having a nervous breakdown, he's writing me another script for Xanax,
Mhm.
another
Yeah.
medication.
Yeah.
So
Let
here,
me
take
can I ask you
this.
a question about that? So when you're feeling all of the detox of
Mhm,
the opiates,
mhm.
did you attribute that to the pain that your body was in because of your back? Or did you know
I
that it was detox?
No, I didn't know. I thought it was just pain, and I like I said, I didn't know
Mhm.
none of this. I didn't
Mhm.
know nothing about a detox, never detox. I had no clue. So all the symptoms that I'm telling him that I'm having, he's, the words to him from him was, "Here, take this before you kill somebody."
Mhm. Mhm.
So let me back up. In 2000, I met my husband, and we lived together for a while, which I know is wrong, but at the time we just lived together, and we ended up getting married, a couple of years later. But um, and he was the love of my life, and even I was fighting with him, not knowing about the detox. Okay.
Mm.
So then I ended up taking nerve medicine and taking opiates and benzos at the same time, which really started a problem. And
Yeah.
when you mix the two, it's not a good combination. So anyway, fast forward. So a few years, it just progressively got worse. I just started overtaking this and overtaking that. And I got back in church during this time. Some friends of mine, Lisa Bronner and Barry Bronner. He's a preacher. I know you know them.
Mhm.
And he was preaching, and Lisa and I had started working together in insurance, and she kept inviting me to church, and I kept saying, I will, yeah, I will." So one day we were out working together, and she said, "So Barry's preaching at this church Sunday, blah blah blah. Would you like to go?" So I thought, yeah, I think I will. So I met them and rode with them down there, and so I started going to church again, and that I had such a connection that day of going back to church for the first time in years,
Mhm.
and that um it was like, okay, God, I'm ready to do this. Okay.
Mm.
So at that point, my addiction had not started, and that kind of thing. I was taking pills, but I wasn't out of control. So I started going to church, and then their home church was Hilltop. So she invited me to Hilltop. So I started going to Hilltop. And so I got where I'd go to church every Sunday. Well, and I loved it. I was involved. I was involved with pretty much anything Hilltop did, dinners and homecoming and that kind of thing. And then my pill use started getting really bad
Mhm.
throughout the years. So um, it got to the point, and I'm very embarrassed to say this, but it's just truth.
Mhm.
It got to the point where if I didn't have my pills on Sunday morning to take before I went to church, I wouldn't go because I knew I would be so sick at
Mhm.
church.
Mhm.
So somebody asked, there's a in your steps, in your 12 steps, there's a question where it asks, did you ever get high or use at church? And I have to answer yes,
Mhm.
because I had to have a pill to be able to go. And it got to that point. So then my first grandbaby was born in 2009, and I was so pill sick.
Mm.
I was so pill sick that day that I could barely drive to Glasgow to the
Mm.
hospital. And when I got there, somebody gave me a Suboxone and she just said, "Here," said, "take this," said, "it'll cure your sickness." She knew what was wrong with me. So I took it, and girl, in about 5 minutes later, I thought I was Hercules. I was
Yeah.
not sick anymore. That was the best feeling, and I can say now it was the best high I ever had. It was even better than the opiates. And Suboxone, people that don't know what that is, it's a blocker. It's supposed to be a blocker for opioid addiction, but that's a whole new demon.
Mhm.
That is a whole new demon. And when I started that, that's when my decline started. So it got pretty rough.
So, in all of these things, did you find that you think you'd have it under control until you didn't?
Till I didn't.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Tina, one of the things that I'm listening to your story and I see this happen a lot, how we think we can drink that alcohol, that's not my problem. I've got that under control. Then it goes to the pot. And I think I can do that. That's not my problem. I can, we think we're still in control, but it's already got a hold of us before we realize we are out of control. But one thing builds on another thing, from opiates to the benzos to Suboxone, like it just keeps gradually building. And it starts with that addictive brain, basically. It's the whatever the vice is that people use to feed that addictive brain changes for everybody. But once that switch is on, whatever turned that switch on, then it's on, and we're not in control necessarily of any part of it.
No, and I know June 28th, 2018 is my sober day. So I've just celebrated 6 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I know that I can never drink alcohol, not even a sip. I know I could never smoke another joint. I know I can never take another pill or anything, because I know that is just, even though alcohol was not my thing. I mean, it might have been back in the day, you party and stuff, but I was never an alcoholic. I was a big pothead back in the day, but I didn't. One little thing I know will trigger my brain to that feel good. And that's how most of us get addicted to something, because we have that feel good, that I think it's called serotonin.
Yeah.
When you got that feel good, no matter what your
Dopamine
vice is,
hit.
dopamine, yes, no matter what that is, anything can trigger that. Anything that alters your brain will trigger that. So
Mhm.
I know for myself, some people can handle it. And if they can, God bless them. But I know I cannot.
That's the thing. It doesn't matter what it is.
Mm-mm.
When that is stripped on, we are susceptible to anything put in front of us at that point.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So when I tell you my sober date is June 16th, 2018, or June 28th, 2018, I'm telling you, I ain't had alcohol. I ain't had nothing cross my mouth. So, but I know better. And I know that I know better. But I also know better because I know when I cried out to God that night, I just got to tell that.
Tell
I
it,
just want to
tell
skip
it,
to that part because
tell
this is actually my journey began back then, or my story begins back then, but my journey began.
Mm.
So I told you about the Suboxone and
Mhm.
stuff. Okay, so that led me into nut houses, mental facilities. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Rehab. I went to rehab. I went to jail several times. Got arrested several times. It was just a non-ending cycle.
Mhm.
And then in 2016, I let somebody put a needle in my arm for the first time.
Mm.
And when they did that, then that was another demon. And
Mhm.
then 2017, I did my first line of meth.
Mhm.
And that was the end of it. That was my destruction to end all destruction right there.
Mm.
And because nothing was never good enough. I could never get high enough. And you're always chasing that first high. It seemed like, I think the term is chasing the dragon.
Mhm.
And I could never get high enough, and so I was always looking for something more.
Mhm.
So this is the part where I'm leading up to. So in 2018, June 2018, I had pretty much burnt every bridge I had. My family wouldn't have nothing to do with me. It wasn't that they didn't love me; they just didn't know what to do with me, and they weren't going to watch me die.
Mhm.
Basically, and during that time, I had lost my home. My husband had divorced me. My name was Mud. I used to have a pretty decent name. I had nothing. I'd lost everything and everybody. So I was laying there about a week before this happened. I had my Bible that was given to me when I was 10. It's kind of ragged. It's been everywhere with me, but I had it laying on the bed and I was I thought I was going to read it because I know God was working on me at that moment.
Mhm.
Okay. So I was trying to read the Bible and I couldn't read the Bible. I'd look at it and it was open, but I couldn't read it. So in my messed up mind, and I never watch these preachers on TV because when you do, you get half truths and whatever. So I quit doing that. But I turned this show on some TBN or something, I don't remember, and I'm watching this preacher, and it's Stephen Furtick. He's so cute. So I kind of was looking at him like, I was like, well, he's pretty interested. So I just started listening. It wasn't that I was listening to him; he was just good eye candy. So I was like, you know. But then he started saying stuff that made sense to me, and it was almost like God was trying to talk to me through the TV.
Mhm.
And not that I agree with everything he was saying, but it's just like all of a sudden I felt like kind of God was trying to tell me something.
Mhm.
And here I have this Bible laying beside me, and I'm looking at this Bible, and then I'm looking back at the TV, and I'm thinking, okay, God, so maybe I need to pick this Bible up. So I would pick it up and put it in my lap, and I would look at it, but I couldn't read it. So then I'd set it back down over there, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to read it. Okay, I'm going to read it. And I pick it. So it was like a spiritual war going on within
Yeah.
myself that I didn't know. I didn't know what was happening. And I was so messed up in my mind that I couldn't figure out what was happening to me.
Mhm.
So fast forward a couple of days. June 27th. It was on a Wednesday. I did the last amount of dope that I had. And I said, this is it. I'm done. I'm done.
Mm.
God, I'm done. So the next day, at some point during that day, I remember thinking the one thing that I learned out of a 30-day program that I went to is one day at a time.
Mhm.
And that played in my mind, one day at a time. So I was like, okay, God, And this is what I said. I remember sitting in my bed going, God, please help me stay sober just for today, just today. And I did. For that whole day, I didn't talk to nobody. I didn't leave my room other than to get something to drink or go to the bathroom. That was it. I didn't talk to nobody. I stayed away from everybody. So the next day, which was Friday, and that was June 28th. So I call that my sober date.
Mhm.
And so on Friday, June the 29th, in my feeble, messed up mind, I'm going, okay, it worked for one day. Let's try this again. So I said, God, please help me stay sober again today. And about 3 o'clock that afternoon, the police was beating on my door. And I got arrested for a charge that I didn't do, but I went to jail. And when I went to jail, my probation officer had come and did my drug test, and I blew that cup up. So, of course, that violated me again. So, this is where my journey began. So, I'm sitting in jail, and all the other times that I'd go to jail, I'd be mad about it. And I was mad at my mom. I was mad at my husband. I was mad at my family. I was so mad at everybody.
Mhm.
So for the first 6 days, and normally when I'd go to jail, I'd say, take me to the back. Don't leave me in this holding cell. It's a little bitty cell and I can't do it. But that was the one time I begged them to just leave me up here, because I didn't have enough
Aw.
sense to know what was really truth and what wasn't. I was so twacked out of my mind that I didn't know who to trust. I couldn't differentiate
Mhm.
the truth from a lie.
Mhm.
So I begged them to leave me up there. And for about 6 days, I stayed in that holding cell.
Mm.
And so then they finally put me to back. I come to my senses. I had asked for a Bible when I went in, and they brought me a Bible. And I went to the back. But during that 6 days that I was up there, all I would do was sleep and read the Bible. Sleep and read the Bible. And so when I finally got to the back one night, this girl says, I hear them say, 12 steps is here. And I was like, 12 steps? What's that? I never heard of it. I said, 12 steps? What's that? And they said, well, it's kind of like NAAA. Said, do you want to go? And I said, absolutely. I
Aw.
need some AANA. I need something. So anyway, I go in, and I had this, I had my hair up, and I had longer hair, and I had them up in dog
Yeah.
ears, and I had this bandana looking thing tied around my head. So I looked kind of like a Ninja Turtle. And so I go in there and I sit down, and I see this lady that she looked familiar to me. And I kept looking at her like, I know the look that I was giving her, because you know how when you know
Mhm.
somebody. And I'm looking, and I thought, and she just looked at me and she smiled and she said, yes, Tina, it's me, Tammy. When she said that, I knew it was. I started squalling, So here I am. I'm sitting in this room, in the NPR room of Macon County Jail, and I'm looking like who done it and why.
Uh-huh.
And here's my friend from high school that I knew from high school that I loved very much in high school, sitting here put together. It looked like like she was all, you know how Miss Tammy
Yeah,
looks. She's always
yes.
put together. And I see her, and I felt at that very moment, I felt so ashamed of,
Aw.
I could have been her. And
Mm.
if I'd have stayed on a good path with God, I could have been her. And instead, I'm sitting here in this jail cell looking like a train wreck, like I'd just come out of a train wreck. And her sister Kelly was there. Now, I didn't know Kelly. She was quite a bit younger. But I saw them sitting there, and I thought, at that moment, I thought, what have I done with my life? I have
Mm.
totally wrecked my life.
Mm.
So anyway, fast forward, she started doing the 12 steps with us. And I started out with the step 1, and then the next week she'd come back and do the step 2 and the step 3, so every week she'd do a different step. Well, then one night she comes in, and she didn't do her steps. She starts telling the story of her kids
Mhm.
and how they went into addiction, and she tells the story, and I'll let her tell it. I believe she's been on
been
and
on
told
here,
it a little
yes.
bit, so But up until then, I'd been praying, God, show me. I know you've got something for my life. Show me what it is.
Oh, let's pause right there. I
Okay.
can't wait to see what he showed you. We'll be right back after the break.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBN Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Tina, let's pick right back up where we left off. You are in the NPR room.
I'm in the NPR room doing this class, and Miss Tammy's telling this story, and all of a sudden she says, and I, like I said, I've been praying, God, please show me. I know you've got something for me. So when she said, the words she said was, God told me if I didn't like it to get up and do something about it and open a house for 20 ladies, and that would play forever. And it was immediately, as soon as that come out of her mouth, it was almost like I hear God say, there's your answer. And I knew at some point, didn't know how, didn't know when, didn't know how I was going to get it, but I knew at some point I'd be at Romans 8:28. And then lo and behold, I was the first one there.
Yes.
The day it opened was the day I walked in. And I know we're short on time, but I wanted to throw this in here. Miss Tammy and Miss Kelly, they were great. And then you guys come into our lives. Didn't know you from Adam. Y'all came in and you did the singing with us, and you and Carolyn and Heather, and y'all were a big part of our recovery, especially that first group, because y'all were always there with us. So I have grown so much, and I've learned so much at Romans that I want to tell this too real quick. I would wear her out every day. I would be in an office going, I know God's got something for me to do, but I don't know what it is. And finally, one day she looked at me and she said, well, Tina, maybe he's already told you and you're not listening. And I was like,
oh,
well, maybe. So then it was just not long after that, Miss Tammy come to me and she said, Tina, she said, I'd like for you to work for the ministry after you graduate. And would you be interested in that? I said, absolutely. So God says, there's your answer
there
again,
you
know.
go.
So then
He'll
I started
take charge of our
absolutely.
steps.
But then I started doing I started being the recovery coordinator at first and doing the steps with the ladies. And then my role kind of changed throughout the years in these past 5 years. So now I just say I'm supposed to be the intake coordinator, but I kind of feel like I'm just anything I need to be for that day, wherever I needed, and I tell Miss Tammy that all the time. She'll call me and I say, well, just whatever you need me to do, just let me know. And I try to do that. But the biggest thing is I try to teach the girls. I take them to church. Some of them get mad at me. Oh Lord, when I say, "Well, we're going to church tonight," and it ain't an option, they're like, "But I'm tired." Well, so was Jesus carrying that cross, So they get so tired of hearing
They
that.
don't get much over on you. Everybody loves it.
No, but that's and now here we are. Come in December, it'll be open. Romans will be open 6 years.
Yes.
And it's been the best journey ever. And during all this time, God restored my family back to me, even though I lost my dad. But he got to see me be sober for 2 years. It restored my family back together, my relationship with him. Now, I don't, when something devastating happened, I don't take it to the alcohol or the drugs or whatever. I know I take it to Jesus. And I know I can leave it all at his feet, and the blessings. I can't even describe how many blessings that I've had throughout this walk and this journey. People always saying, "I'm proud of you," and I just always say, well, it ain't me. I didn't do this, because if it was me, I'd still be making a mess out of it. But God, say, but God did this. I didn't do nothing. I just had to be the willing vessel. So,
and you serve in such an amazing capacity, in not just in recovery community, but just ministering to other people's needs, and telling them about Jesus, and taking them where they can hear about Jesus.
Yeah.
And like
we go to,
you are in your calling for sure.
Well, I didn't expect this. When I said, "God, please help me and please show me," I did not expect it to be in this capacity, but I wouldn't change anything. I have bad days. We all have bad days. When you're in recovery, you're going to have bad days.
Yes.
But I wouldn't change a thing. I would not, because I know, and I know this too, if I know I don't have another one in me, and I know that. And as long as I keep that in my mind, but God's done let me know that there's been times when I'd get so frustrated, I'd go, "God, I'm done. I'm just done. I'm not doing this no more." And God says, "Oh, no, you're not." And then Miss Tammy will call and say, "Well, we're not done. God's not done with us, and we're going to do this." It's just, so it's like reconfirming everything. God is in control.
Yes.
And as long as we do what he wants us to do, and we try to follow his will, the blessings will keep coming. No matter how bleak and how things, how bad the devil tries to come at you. And I'm telling you, he's evil. He's evil. But God is mighty. God is mighty.
So mighty.
He is so much mightier.
Yes.
So even when we think we can just throw up our hands and quit, God says,
he's not done.
I'm not done. I'm not done.
So what's something, Tina, that you would leave listeners with today?
Oh, well, I would say don't ever give up. Don't stop. As far as the recovery community, I would say never give up. But as far as somebody that don't know Jesus, I would say just keep seeking. And when you go as far as you think you can go, and you get up, and I'd get discouraged and get up, I would hear people say, just keep going. You've come too far to turn back. Just keep going. Keep till you pray through. But some people don't know how to pray. Some people weren't raised in church like I was.
Right.
And I hate that. I hate to hear anybody say that, but unfortunately that's true.
It's true.
But when I feel like that, when you're in your lowest, and you're dealing with anxiety, and you're dealing with hurts and pains, the only person that's ever going to help you through that is Jesus. And until you keep seeking and you find Jesus, you're going to always have those kind of feelings. Once you get that peace, ooh, Lord, once you get that peace, you'll be good.
Tina, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
And sharing all the amazing stuff Jesus has
Thank
done
you.
for you. I love watching you just do what you do.
Well, girl, if we had an hour, I could tell you some more.
Well, you may have to come back on sometime. So I want to thank you again for coming. Thank you guys for tuning in today. You have been watching The Way to Break Free on Bold Brave TV. Like and subscribe, and you'll be notified when we go live each week. And you won't miss all these amazing stories like Miss Tina's. So we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Angie.
This has been The Way to Break Free with your host, Angela Pedigo. The one thing Angela attributes her personal victories to is her relationship with God and her deep faith. Tune in each week and hear stories and testimonies of people in personal and professional trenches and how they overcome them with their own faith in God. The Way to Break Free has something for everyone, everywhere. Right here, Wednesdays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.